Добрий день.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joined us today. My name is Olga Atamanova, and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. It's day 268 of the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people. All this time, our power supply systems are under constant fire by Russians, and sometimes it even seems that it's one of the main targets, one of the main goals of the so-called operation, so-called special operation. And today our guest Oleksandr Kharchenko, director at the Energy Industry Research Center, and we'll talk specifically about the condition of our power supply system. So what's your evaluation of the current condition of our power grid? How many damages we suffered due to to the destruction of the power grid? I have to be honest with you, the condition is quite complicated. Yesterday, when there was an air raid alert, and I've heard news about another wave of missiles flying our way, my heart started agitating, because after the Monday strike, the power grid is destroyed to a significant extent, and I don't know how able we will be go through the next attack. Go through, I mean that in some regions we have a threat of blackout, after which re-establishment of power supply will take pretty long. By long, I mean at least 3 to 5 days until the re-establishment of the power supply itself, when people start getting electricity, when people start seeing electric power in any way, at least a few hours per day. The situation is complicated. The strike was quite powerful. However, nobody sits with their hands in their pockets. I was talking to one of the directors, and they say we just finished another repair and there was another strike. It's morally difficult when you work, when you rebuild something, and this facility ends up under strike again, but the reconstruction is in process, is in progress. All the consumers who were switched off, they have the power supply re-established gradually, step by step, but the situation is improving every hour. Thank God, if we have at least 10 to 12 days pause, so we can rebuild the grid, and we can see some future, until we see some future attacks. Well, we know that in Khmelnytska power plant, in Rivnenska power plant, was the situation there. We know some blocks were stopped there. The pause in works of these power plants is caused by the fact that the attack was concentrated on the redistribution stations, and redistribution stations on the way from nuclear power plants and coal power plants. We understand that the target of the Moscow regime was to deprive us of the opportunity to take power from the nuclear power plants, because they are the fundamental of the Ukrainian power generation now. For a couple of hours, the blocks were offline. We were even forced to start the diesel generators. However, as of now, the situation is way better. The connection of those blocks to the grid is re-established, and I think that shortly we will be able to re-establish the full connection. We know that the last strike resulted in shutdown in Moldova as well. So our shutdowns, how do they influence the countries of the European Union? Well, we don't influence the countries of the European Union, but Moldova is technically a part of Ukrainian grid, and in power sense, Moldova goes through this war with us. They suffer the same as us. Technically, physically, they're the part of our power grid. We together with Moldova, we synchronized, and it's been managed from the same control center as the Ukrainian grid. So the aggression of Moscow government makes Moldovans suffer as well. Dear colleagues, your questions, please. Valentin Marchuk, can you please tell if the reestablishment of the power sources help stabilizing our power grid? You see, technically they even impeded the generation of the renewable sources like solar power plants or wind energy. For example, the wind blows harder, it changes the volumes of generation, and it should be covered. So renewable energy is very efficient during peacetime, and it's good that you don't have to use fuel, that there is no waste. But in terms of power security, those are the capacities that should be balanced, and we have to maintain other capacities ready to work. For example, as soon as the sun sets, the solar power plants switch off, and we have to start something else. So besides, the renewable sources became really the victims of war, because a large number of the renewable power sources were built specifically in the southern part of the country, in Kherson and Mykolaiv region. They are destroyed, I would say, to the ground. I was talking to one of the owners of the wind power plants, and the Russian helicopter stumbled upon one of the masts. At least it's pleasure for us. So another question about blackouts. There is much talks about blackout in the society now. You said that this moment may come and the people will not have power at least like 3 to 5 days, may it be longer. Well, you know, the problem is that there was no such experiment in the world. So nobody actually threw the system, the scale of Ukrainian, into blackout and never tried to reestablish it. Moreover, there were no so massive missile strikes on any grid of any countries in the world. So it's the unique Ukrainian experience, and when you ask people who are responsible for it, when you ask them like what's gonna happen, and they tell you, we will tell you only we relaunch it after the blackout. But talking about the basic calculations, basic regulations in case of blackout, the favorable scenario, positive scenario is 3 days, and the negative scenario is 7 to 10 days to rebuild the system and to rebuild the full consumption. Your question, please.
Sir, thank you very much. Lorenzo Cremonesi of Corriere della Sera. You're really at the center of the war, as we understand, and thank you for your patience. Sir, a couple of questions. First, at the moment, how much of the electrical system, of the electrical net of the country is out of order? Can you give us an idea of yesterday in the night, President Zelensky spoke about 10 million people without electricity. What does it mean in terms of the system? How much of it? First question.
Let's question by question. It was really more than 10 million consumers out of the connection. It's 45-47% of all consumers in Ukraine. Now maybe near 300 of consumers still out of connections, that it's most the consumers near the front line. As a result of missile attack, near all consumers who was hit already renewed from side of electrical connection. They have a schedule, it's scheduled of course, and they have from 6 to 12 hours per day electricity supply.
sorry, again, the percentage of the electrical net, can you tell us?
We reconnect almost 100% of people who was disconnected as a result of missile attack.
And at the moment, the total system, how much? Not referring to the last attack.
Total system
of the
near
country.
21 million consumers. 21 and a half. I not remember exact figure because of the occupation. It's a little bit changed week by week.
Second question, a delicate one, I understand, for you and for all of us, I think, for all of Europeans. Apparently, lately, the Russians are targeting nuclear power station. I mean, till now we always spoke about the power station, the nuclear of Zaporizhia, but now we are talking about the four.
Look, they didn't attack a station itself. They attacked a substation, transformer substation, which is responsible to connect nuclear power plant to the power grid. They didn't attack reactors, they didn't attack any kind of equipment in the station. They attacked especially transformer substation. That was a targeted focus.
And that's put in danger the system of the station or not?
Yeah, and 3 reactors was out of the system, but it's already repaired.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ще питання, друзі.
Any more questions, friends?
Michael Washura, Newsweek magazine. To what extent do other aspects of the civilian infrastructure depend on the provision of electrical energy? So if there is damage further to the electrical grid, what does that do to water, gas, heating, plumbing, telecommunications, etc.?
Absolutely right question. It's influence everything. Electricity, then after at maximum 4 or 5 hours you have no any mobile network available. Even if equipment has backups and some reserve storages and everything, it's not able to keep in touch more than 4 or 5 hours, most of them. Then water channel. It's a electrical pump used in all cities of Ukraine to supply water, as well to move treatments to waste treatment plant. Both of them heated, and several cities already, including Kyiv, was without water for 8-10 hours. Then heating itself. It's also used a lot of electrical based equipment, including pumps and boiler itself. Boiler used gas as a main fuel, but these boilers need electricity to make a fire itself inside. It's like technological part. Without electricity, it's not working. That now a lot of municipality, and I know that Ministry of Regional Development leads this process, do everything possible to equip all this critical infrastructure, including water channel, heating stations, by reserve generators. And some cities successful, some cities less successful, but it's in progress.
Ще питання, прошу.
Оксана Поліщук, Укрінформ.
Oleksandr Vashuk, Ukrinform, can you please tell us what are the complications with the supply of the equipment for rebuilding the power grid, and how efficient is the Western help to us? Well, you know, the situation is more complicated with the equipment now. We understand that people were making their reserves, their provisions, but the money is not infinite, and after a certain number of waves of attacks, these reserves get exhausted. I came here right from the meeting where the supply of additional transformators was discussed, and a lot of equipment is already on the way, and the negotiations are going on about the supply of more equipment, but it's a very specialized equipment. It's not so easily available, and a large part of it takes a lot of time to manufacture, and there is no magic stick. It does not exist, so we're looking for anything that we can, any transformators, any disassembly transformators used. Everything is being purchased now all over the world, and we use something for spare parts, and some of them are used as the sources, some basic elements of the infrastructure, but the problem exists, it objectively exists. And on one hand, the partners, to the maximum extent, they use a lot of effort to look for it and to find it. Any more questions?
Yes, sir. First of all, is that possible that the telephone system, the internet system collapse, or this system can have generator to support them?
It depends. It depends of concrete case, because in some internet providers has this backup equipment, including battery storages, including generators, and they can work on autonomous base. But some of them do not. It depends.
And final question. Are you thinking, if the Russians go on bombing, and it looks to me that they are, to an alternative, totally alternative system like generator or rover?
I think now Ukraine is the leader country in the world by generators and quantity of generators and opportunity to produce electricity from some on autonomical basis. But it's still not enough. I mean, we're still looking for additional generators around the world, and it's already, we buy everything in Europe and close to everything in South Korea and Turkey, whereas the main producers placed, and we still need more.
Питання.
У мене уточнююче запитання. Скажіть, будь ласка,
I have a question to specify what international partners are helping us and what's the volume of this support. Well, talking about the volumes of support, I know that there are programs approved for more than 200 million euro. That's the total number. I'm telling you now, I know that the process of approval of funds is still in progress in many Western partners and many international financial institutions, including the World Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, European Investment Bank. All of them get involved in this process. They're all looking for the funds to buy the necessary equipment as soon as possible. Mr. Oleksandr, today information emerged that the Swedish partners confirmed the sabotage act at the gas pipeline. Can you comment on this? Well, from the very beginning, I was saying that the gas pipeline does not explode by itself, so it's no news to me. I was just honestly interested when we will find evidence that Russians did it themselves, and most likely using the infrastructure for maintenance of the gas pipeline itself. There was information about some remnants of explosives. Does it give us any hope to identify who did it? I hope that the diligence and the ability to finish the work, which is inherent in Swedish mentality, will eventually let us know about these sabotage acts, who committed them and how. Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. Thank you, dear colleagues. I will remind you that we working on the schedule of our briefings for Monday. Let's trust in our armed forces. Let's continue work together for the victory, and glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.